It is time. My name's Jim Anderson. I have the privilege of serving the customers of Cox Health, and today I also have the special privilege of serving as your Master of Ceremonies at the Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame Awards Luncheon. And I welcome you to now the 10th annual Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame Luncheon. And of course, today we'll be honoring the class of 2019, Dr. David Andereck, Mr. Timothy Garrison, and Mr. Larry Hartley. Each of our award recipients have utilized the quality education they received at Springfield Public Schools to build a personal and professional life that's contributed to our city, our state, and our country. This event would not be possible without the generosity of our sponsors, so I'd like to take a moment to thank our platinum, gold, and silver sponsors. Please hold your applause until I list them all, if you would please. We thank our presenting sponsor, 417 Magazine. Other sponsors include Foundation for Springfield Public Schools, AdSmith Marketing and Advertising, KY3, Maddox New Prater, Positronic, and Ozarks Coca-Cola Dr. Pepper Bottling Company. Help me thank our sponsors, which makes today's luncheon possible. My personal conviction is that education is everybody's business. What's good for education, I believe, is good for business. And what's good for education and business is good for our community. Together, we can build a future. Really, public education is a community issue. Further, public education is a community responsibility and commitment. Together, we can and will build the future. The Foundation for Springfield Public Schools, under the leadership of Executive Director Natalie Murdoch, works every day to support the mission of Springfield Public Schools. Thanks to its donors, the Foundation places resources directly into our classrooms, learning experiences for students that impact their life today as well as into their future. While your meals are being served this noon, we'd like to show a brief video highlighting the Foundation's work, followed by remarks from Foundation President Peter Lai.
Since 1990, when the Foundation for Springfield Public Schools was formed, it has provided over $17 million to support Springfield Public Schools. Its mission is to raise, manage, and distribute funds to benefit the students of our district. It exists to promote educational excellence for every student by working with the public school system and the community.
The Foundation for Springfield Public Schools helps to bridge the gap between funding and education by connecting our community and connecting our alumni with the needs of the district. The financial support that the Foundation provides, whether through direct donations to specific projects or to one of the many funds that we manage, helps to ease the burden of teachers.
Over the last 2 years, the FSPS has awarded over $1.3 million to benefit student achievement in Springfield Public Schools. The FSPS provides grant opportunities for educators through its grant programs, Back to School, and Pick a Project.
When you talk about implementing something like STEAM Night at an elementary school, that requires thousands of dollars. And so we wanted to start a robotics club, and when we started looking into it, just getting started was about $12,000 to $15,000. So if you want cutting edge technology in the hands of children, there's really no other way we can do it unless we have something like the Foundation to support us.
The FSPS also provides support for teacher learning opportunities.
I think the most recent and unique opportunity was the $18,000 grant the Foundation awarded the Learning Development Department to help develop SPS Access Class. Access Class is a partnership with Leadership Springfield. We're providing 40 teachers in SPS an opportunity to build some community connections, to network with other educators across the system, to find out what resources are available to students in our community. We face super complex issues as far as serving our students, and we need additional networks outside of the walls of our classrooms to help teachers feel more efficacious in their work. And so this partnership has just been super meaningful, and we're excited about the work of that moving forward.
The foundation supports student needs through the temporary and permanent funds it manages. The foundation manages endowment funds for each high school in Springfield.
The Viking Endowment is a great opportunity for our students. Unfortunately, we have a lot of different costs and fees that are associated with our programs. For example, our academic competitions, dual credit, AP tests, and so the endowment allows students to receive that money, apply for that money. Without the support of the Viking Endowment, many of our students would be at a disadvantage.
As I think about what this foundation does for Springfield Public Schools, they really do meet needs that are existing in our classrooms for our kids and for our teachers. They bring a smile to the face of our kids and our teachers whenever the foundation shows up and shows support.
The foundation relies on the support of a generous community to support the needs of our students and educators. You can learn more, get involved, or donate by visiting supportsps.org.
Good afternoon, everyone. As the board president, my name is Peter Lai. The Foundation for Springfield Public School, we're really proud to sponsor this wonderful event which recognizes the achievement of our outstanding alumni. And on behalf of the foundation, I want to congratulate each inductees today and thank you for your contribution to the world and how your accomplishment sets a really bright example and inspiring example for our students today. As you can see from the video, the Foundation for Springfield Public School is doing some great work to support public education. Our board actually visited the McBride Elementary School that is featured in the video about their STEAM project last month at our board meeting. We witnessed some really enthusiastic students that couldn't wait to show us how they program robotics to move from point A to point B. And they're also so excited to show us how they can program the robotic to do the task that they desire to do. And as I read a biography and as you get to learn about our inductees today, it gets me so excited to think about all three of them were once a little boy that were so eager to learn, just like those students that we saw. So what we're doing at the foundation, we're so excited to know our funding are really developing the learning of our future Hall of Fame inductees. So after the lunch today, when you have a moment, please visit supportsps.org to learn more about what we do for our students. And while you're there, please check out and update your information on our alumni program and keep us up to date on your amazing lives so we can keep track with you. And finally, while you're there, please consider support the foundation because your funding will be supporting future Hall of Fame candidates. So thank you very much. Please enjoy your lunch and please enjoy the musical talent from Hillcrest High School. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tim Rosenberry. I'm president of the Board of Education for Springfield Public Schools. And today it's my honor to congratulate our inductees on behalf of Springfield Public Schools. Typically, our superintendent would be here to celebrate these alumni with you, but Dr. John Jungman sends regrets that his work requires him to be out of town today. As a board member, one of my favorite ways to serve comes each year in May as we celebrate our graduating students, hand them their diplomas, and watch as they take that first step toward their future. Today's event is an equally pivotal milestone in my service. Over the next several minutes, we will learn how today's inductees, once young, excited, nervous, and eager high school graduates themselves, transformed into leaders in their respective fields. Continue to enjoy your meal as I recognize our 2019 Hall of Fame inductees and their family members who joined them today. Please stand as I call your name. First, Dr. David Andereck is joined by his wife, Barbara. Mr. Timothy Garrison, along with his wife Tracy and their children Silas, Luke, and Selah. Please stand. And Mr. Larry Hartley and his wife Charlotte, their daughter Sharon Crook, son-in-law Brian, and granddaughter Kaylee. Welcome. All of our inductees have had careers that will have a long-lasting impact on our world. One knows quite a bit about the interaction of ultra-high-intensity laser light with matter. One knows a substantial amount about interstate and international drug trafficking and money laundering. But his knowledge, don't worry, his knowledge comes from prosecuting individuals who've gone down these wrong paths. And one developed trajectory techniques that allowed astronauts to extend their time spent on the moon. All three of them are examples of what students can accomplish when they are provided a sound educational foundation. As a school district and as a community, we're honored to celebrate with you, and we say thank you for the positive differences you are making. Jim, if you'd come back to the podium, I think it's time to learn a little bit more about our inductees. Yes, sir.
Our first inductee, Dr. David Andereck, is a 1970 Parkview High School graduate. His passion for science and math led to his early graduation at the age of 16. He's conducted extensive research focused on hydrodynamics, astrophysics, and high-power laser interaction with matter physics. How's that for a mouthful? As impressive as that is, it is his continued work mentoring students that no doubt will leave a lasting impression on future generations. I direct your attention to the screens and join me in watching a video which highlights David's life through interviews with those who know him personally as well as professionally.
He was a student, one of the first students I had when I was teaching physics, and I've got to say it was the most skillful class I ever had, and David was one of those three top students.
Back when my family moved to Springfield, Missouri back in 1971, my mom contacted the university, Southwest Missouri State at the time, and found out they had a astronomy program and an astronomy club. It was called the Ozark Amateur Astronomers Club. And I met a couple of guys there, Dave Andereck and Dave Talent. These were my kind of guys. That Dave had an interest in astronomy, as did I. I often tell people I wanted to be the third great astronomer from Southwest Missouri.
Oh, my straight A student. Never made a B, probably never made a B on a test even. So really, really smart guy, but a very nice person, very nice.
He was such a good student that when I had subsequent physics classes, he actually spoiled me a little bit. So I was a little disappointed with some of the future students I had.
His opinion was always really valued by everybody because, as I said, when Dave talks, he doesn't always say much, but when he talks, it is with a purpose and an intention that everyone's going to listen to. He does things in condensed matter physics and fluid mechanics, including convection and things like that, and those are very difficult concepts. And don't tell him, but I've always been impressed that he can do that.
Very intelligent and very studious, and gosh, he knows physics. I think that's the main thing about him. I would tell people, and I'd like to put on this video, is just what a good man, what a good kid he was, and what a good man he's become.
Dave is an excellent golfer.
We started playing golf, I don't even remember what year at Parkview. We were on the golf team our junior and senior years, but we played Saturday mornings with his father. And always, I'll say it now, maybe say it again, but He is a better golfer than I am, and I'm sure he remains to this day.
And I also recall playing golf with him once, and he understood principles of physics when he swung his golf club a heck of a lot better than I did. So I only played with him once. It was too embarrassing.
If I'd gone as a freshman in high school over to the university and had not been welcomed by the college kids that were there, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this seat today. Because he and David Talent were gracious, if you will, and more or less befriended me, I went to Missouri State, Southwest Missouri State back then, and eventually had my career at NASA. A lot of that has to do with David Andereck.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Blake. I was a physics and chemistry instructor at Parkview High School from 2001 to 2014 and have been a physics and chemistry professor at Ozarks Technical Community College as well as the science department head at OTC Middle College for the past 5 years. Over the last 15 years, I served on the Physics Advisory Board at Missouri State University, where I've had the amazing opportunity to serve with Dr. David Andereck, physics professor and dean of, let me be sure to say it correctly, the Ohio State University. I describe Dr. Andereck to my friends and colleagues as the Neil deGrasse Tyson of Springfield, Missouri. When you think of the famous Neil, you imagine him as a book author, famous researcher, physics journal author, international presenter, a political figure fighting for physics research funding, and a physicist with ties to the U.S. Department of Defense. When I read through Dave's 8-page curriculum vitae to write his essays, I found the exact same awards and accolades of our Dave. He just hasn't had his own television show yet, but he's still young and there's still time. Dave is a staunch supporter of education across the nation, but particularly here with our kiddos in Springfield, with our aspiring scientists and our curious student minds. I have personally sat for hours and hours each year with Dr. Andereck, toiling away on the advisory board, stuffed inside the concrete bunker that Cliff Smart calls Kemper Hall. What I love most about him, as Charlie said, is his incredible thoughtfulness. He is the kind of person who listens twice as much as he speaks softly, but speaks with great wisdom when he does. Dave and his wife, Barbara, have been significant donors to Missouri State University, particularly in the physics department, to aid with equipment acquisition, facilities, and a myriad of student opportunities. Of particular interest to all of us in this room have been the scholarships they have provided for our Springfield Public Schools students to study physics at Missouri State. In fact, I can think of several handfuls of my personal Viking physics babies back when I taught there who went on to study physics because of the generosity of the Andereck scholarships. Not only has Dave made all of us affiliated with Springfield Public Schools very proud of him as a graduate with his accomplishments, but he has provided a legacy of giving back to our community of learners to create a cycle of self-propagation for our local science education community. Today, it is my considerable honor and privilege to introduce to you my favorite Viking of all time, all the way from the Ohio State University in the company of his beautiful wife, Barbara, who is also a decorated physicist, and being escorted by Parkview student Rebecca Platts. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Andereck.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, for those for the nomination and those very, very kind words. You know, I'm a little worried. I don't often speak with a bear behind me, so
may need to choose my words carefully. I also want to thank Kevin O'Neill and Bruno Schmidt and Charlie Armstrong, who cannot be here because he's cruising the Pacific at the moment as an astronomy lecturer on a Viking river cruise. I want to thank you for your kind words and thoughts, and my golf game hasn't kept up quite so well, but maybe someday we'll get to try it out again. I hardly recognize myself in all of these accolades. That person sometime. I also want to thank all of my old and newer friends who are able to be here today to help celebrate this with me. And I'm also thankful for the chance that I had yesterday with my wife to go to Parkview High School and get to meet with several AP science students and get to discuss their concerns, their questions, their thoughts, and just share with them a little bit about what the future might hold for them. And it's great to see the changes in Parkview. A few changes have occurred in the 50 years since I left there. I haven't changed, but it's changed quite a bit. So, so I'm truly honored, I'm humbled, I'm delighted to join my distinguished inductees, my fellow distinguished inductees, and those already in the Hall of Fame, including Charlie Armstrong. I want to thank you. So, Springfield is not where I was born, but it's where this story starts. So it's 1960. There's a 7-year-old boy living at 1150 South Kimbrough, and the old homestead is still there. His parents tell him to go outside and look up at a bright spot of light moving overhead in the night sky. It was Echo 1, a giant reflective balloon recently launched into space to serve as the first primitive communication satellite, if you can believe that. From that moment on, that small boy was launched himself on a journey into science. I'm a first-generation college graduate. My parents didn't always understand why I was interested in science, but they supported me all the way. I do remember that my mother bought me a subscription to some Dr. Seuss books, thinking that they were about science. And she was really upset when she found out what they were all about. She later subscribed me to an actual science book series, and that worked out considerably better. I do like Dr. Seuss, by the way. So fast forward to the 3rd and 4th grade at Phelps Elementary, which also has undergone a few changes since I was there. And Bruce and Debbie and who else? Did anybody else go to Phelps? Yeah, okay. A few changes since we were all there. 3rd and 4th grade, my teacher was Lillian McDonald. She was the wife of Andy McDonald, for whom McDonald Arena at Missouri State is named, or would later be named. She was really encouraging and flexible. I recall leading a group of students in her class and trying to write a science fiction novel. We didn't make it to the publisher, unfortunately, but it was a good project anyway. She, more than anyone else, helped move me along to the 6th grade, skipping the 5th and into the class with Mr. Morrison, who was the science specialist for Phelps at the time. I remember becoming totally confused about an experiment that we were supposed to do. We ran on the oscillation period of a pendulum. Okay, how many talks of this sort have had a physics demonstration involved? Well, you got one today. Here's a pendulum. So what were we supposed to do? We were trying to figure out the characteristics of a pendulum. So we'd let it swing and count that. And then you'd change the length of the string and you'd find out that it was a little faster. And then you were supposed to change the mass that was hanging from the pendulum string. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no idea how to graph anything. We kept asking questions. It was just kind of a mess. We just sort of lost track. Well, that was my first exposure to a real science experiment, which reminds me of something that I've shared with a few of you before. If you do a biology demonstration and it moves, that's biology. If it smells, it's chemistry. And if it doesn't work, it's physics. If you ever get a chance, watch YouTube videos on Julius Sumner Miller. who used to be on The Tonight Show some. He was a physics professor in Southern California who would do these incredible demonstrations and crack Johnny Carson up. Well, later at Pershing, I met several remarkable teachers and one singular individual who's already been mentioned today, David Leroy Talent. David and I bonded pretty quickly over science. I remember we would stand in the lunch line. Do they even still do that today, you students? Are there lunch lines? I don't know. And we would play Stump the Teacher. So every day we'd come up with a question for the teacher. Well, one day we came up with what we called the Davidian theory of gravitational attraction. It wasn't much of a theory, but it was a little unusual for kids our age. So ignoring all sorts of physics details for the physicists in the audience, what would happen if you drilled a hole all the way through the center of the earth and out the other side, and then dropped a ball in it? Okay, there's a lot of details we're ignoring here. What would happen? Well, we decided, well, it would speed up, and it would pass through the center of the earth, and it would slow down to zero velocity on the other side, and then it would fall back through the hole and keep going. Sort of like that pendulum. It would go through an oscillation. Pretty big one, but it would be an oscillation nonetheless. So it stumped the teacher. She didn't know what we were talking about. She rolled her eyes at us a lot, which I guess is typical of science nerds. David and I would go fossil hunting together, and we collected water samples from a stream near his home that were filled with just amazing little creatures. We built and flew model rockets. I learned from him about photography back when actual film and darkrooms and such were involved, and I learned about astronomy. We built telescopes and became famous in the local astronomy club for our ability to find objects with our telescopes and take pictures with them. We were Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. We were Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. Sheldon and Leonard, perhaps? Bazinga. Yes, okay. After graduation from Parkview, David enrolled at SMSU to study physics. I went to the University of Missouri at Rolla, but then he convinced me to come back. And after my freshman year, I transferred to SMSU and majored in physics and math. We had a fun time together again, but then our paths diverged. I got married to fellow physics and math major Barbara, and we went off to New Jersey, where I went to Princeton for a year to study astrophysics, and then Rutgers, where we both received our PhDs. David went to Nebraska and Rice, got his PhD in astronomy. He worked at Yerkes Observatory. He was a faculty member at Abilene Christian for a while, and he finally worked for NASA. David was really my inspiration for all his many interests and general fearlessness. He became a private pilot, traveled the world to view solar eclipses, even had an asteroid named after him. He was a pioneer in NASA's study of orbital space debris. I'm most grateful that his sisters Kathy and Rebecca can be here today. I can truly say without David's presence in my life and his inspiration, my path would have been totally different. Unfortunately, David passed away a couple of years ago. I don't want David Talent forgotten. He was an amazing person. He was full of life and energy, and the world is definitely a poorer place without him. So shifting gears a bit, I'm a professional educator. Yes, I've done research. I've had PhD students, but I think of myself as an educator. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean stuffing a lot of facts into students' heads that they spill back out onto a test? No. Facts are important. Without those pesky facts, it's hard to be an educated person. But to me, it means going beyond that to helping students to learn to see and to think. In graduate school, you have to pass a general exam in your field of study. You stand in front of a group of faculty members, and for a couple of hours that seems like an eternity, you have to answer their questions on any topic they feel like asking you about. Everyone comes out of those exams mentally and physically exhausted, believing you're pretty much a failure and that you might as well look for some other career path. Well, I passed. And when I went to get a required signature from one of the professors on the exam committee, He told me that what impressed him was that I showed that I thought like a physicist. It was a tremendous compliment, and I still obviously feel good about it to this day. And I can thank people like Dorothy Dussman at Parkview and J.W. Mount, who was the physics teacher there, Bruno Schmidt, who was my first research mentor, Bob Thurman, excuse me, who taught quantum mechanics. And by the way, Bob, I still don't believe in quantum mechanics. I think it's fake news. I thank Larry Banks and Dr. Northrup, who are no longer with us. But I thank all of these people for helping me get to this point, because they helped me learn how to think like a physicist. What do I want from my students? Sure, I want them to know the basic facts, but I also want them to pay attention to what they see and to think. You know, a computer is really good at storing facts. We take advantage of that all the time now. But as far as I know, to this point, computers still can't think and understand what those facts mean. We've still got that over the computers. Maybe not for much longer, but at least for now, we're still good. A couple of years ago, I was teaching an introductory class for non-physics majors. It was a lab course, no lecturing. I went to the classroom one day and a student was already there, seated at her lab table. I said, "Good morning," as I often did, and her response was, "I hate you." Not exactly what you expect to hear. I asked her why. She told me that she had been looking at the hood of a car on a hot day recently and noticed that the air above the hood was shimmering, kind of rippling in the sunlight, and she got to wondering why. She then realized that prior to my class, she never would have noticed anything unusual, nor would she have thought about why it looked like that. So she hated me because I had changed her way of seeing the world. I'd taught her how to think like a physicist. She came into the course thinking, "I won't ever need this," and left thinking about the world around her. I was thrilled. Those of you who might have seen the movie The Paper Chase, I don't know if you remember this one. I happen to love it. It's kind of a bizarre love, but okay, I loved it. Kingsfield, who was the contracts professor in The Paper Chase, said to his class, "You come in here with a skull full of mush and you leave thinking like a lawyer." Well, that's kind of the way, that's a little harsh, but I want students to come out thinking about things and seeing things. So my life had come full circle, or you might say that the pendulum had swung back. From my first looking up in wonder at a tiny point of light in the sky to having a student of mine look at something in the world with curiosity and wanting to figure out why it was the way it was. If I can leave you with anything today, it's this: look up, look around, pay attention, ask questions, be curious. Don't simply drift through life without wanting to learn more. Education is not just to get a job. It's preparation for a life well lived, and that education continues. The world faces challenges that can only be met through an educated populace, not through ignorance, through thinking broadly about things, not narrow-mindedly. Please never stop learning, never stop seeing, never stop being curious and filled with wonder about the world around you. Thank you.
Dave, congratulations to you. Stephanie, thanks very much for that introduction of Dave. Rebecca, thanks for your help. And Dave, I know you expressed concern about the bear behind us. There are no worries. The law of physics would suggest that animal's dead and is probably not going to move at all, so I think we're safe. The next individual being recognized is Timothy Garrison, Hillcrest High School class of 1994. Inspired by a high school band trip to Washington, D.C., Tim continued to explore his patriotism at home and abroad as a soldier defending our country on foreign soil, and as an attorney defending justice in our courtrooms. Tim is currently the United States Attorney for the Western District of Missouri, as well as a lieutenant colonel in the United States Marine Corps. Those who know Tim and his commitment to truth and justice share highlights of his accomplishments in this video.
It started when Tim came to the U.S. Attorney's Office as a Special Assistant United States Attorney, came from the Marine Corps, and he officed right next to me, and we began to work closely every day, and it was just a real joy. Tim just had such passion for the mission of our office, which was to identify and then prosecute and dismantle major drug trafficking organizations. And he saw the impact that methamphetamine was having on communities in Southwest Missouri, and he really kind of made it his mission that he wanted to dismantle and prosecute these organizations. And it reminded me of why I was first drawn to this kind of work. From the time he came to the U.S. Attorney's Office, I just really admired his desire to be a servant leader, and some of it that comes from his faith. Some of it, I think, comes from his training in the Marine Corps, this leading from the front. I just really admire that he has stayed very, very humble and down to earth. A lot of people, when they get to positions that Tim has risen to, it changes them. Their values change, their outlook, their perspective changes, but he's remained true to his Hillcrest, Hornet, Northside roots, which he should be very proud of those roots too.
We've known each other since we were 12. I think he depended on me for comic relief during high school. Tim is very serious and solid and consistent and quiet. I really think of Captain America. Truly, I don't know if he was captain of the football team, but there is this iconic picture in our yearbook of him leading the team onto the field, and that is the image ingrained in my mind. If Hillcrest High School had a hero, it was definitely Tim Garrison, 1994.
Well, I've known Tim for a long time because I've known his mother since we both started teaching. Even as a student, I always thought, this kid's got something. And he always told me what he wanted to do, that he wanted to be in politics someday. And I thought, you know, he's one of those kids that probably really could do that and make a success of it. He is, gosh, the word keeps coming, humble. I guess it is the humbleness of knowing you do have a talent, but you don't have to show it off to everybody. And that's what I like about Tim. Even as he gets to be an adult, if you see him in Walmart, he'll be in his suit because you know he's just come from court, but yet he still is Tim. No, I just want to tell Tim that I'm very proud of him, that not often do teachers get to share in such a huge accomplishment. And not that I had anything to do with it, but it was such a blessing that he passed through my life and was able to be a part of Hillcrest. And now Hillcrest can be very proud of what they've produced.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Trussell. I'm the Chief Development Officer for an international agency addressing the horrors of addiction called Teen Challenge. I am also here with the distinct honor to introduce my friend, Tim Garrison. I don't know how many of you in the room have friends who have their own Wikipedia pages, but I will tell you it comes in handy should you ever have occasion to introduce them to a crowd of others. Tim Garrison is the United States Attorney for the Western District of Missouri. He graduated Hillcrest High School, as you heard, in 1994, firmly rooted as our LPA King, star football player, having distinguished himself in choir and madrigal and drama, marching band, and as well as academics. He graduated from Drury University and then went on to graduate from University of Missouri twice. First the master's, then the Juris Doctorate. He received his officer's commission after graduating from Marine Corps Officer Candidate School and served as a military prosecutor. You know those JAG guys you see on TV? Tim. His illustrious military career took him as far away as Iraq and Afghanistan, and he continues to serve in the Marine Corps Reserves. He has been recognized for his service with the Combat Action Ribbon, the Meritorious Service Medal, 2 Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medals, and the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal. Today, Lieutenant Colonel Garrison is Associate Deputy General Counsel for International Affairs in the Department of Defense. You know, part-time. When he's not saving and keeping Missouri safe from drug traffickers and violent criminals. I know what you're thinking. You can't believe everything you read on Wikipedia. And let's face it, he's no rocket scientist. Fortunately, we have those as well. I will tell you, however, having read the accolades and the several accomplishments listed by his name, it is just a small glimpse of the accomplishments he's already added. And having had a ringside seat to his career since we were 12, I can tell you every word is true. I really wanted to find something juicy and really shocking or, something just a little bit enthralling and exciting from his early years that would, be amusing and exciting for today. And honestly, I couldn't. I tried. I asked classmates. What I found, what they remembered, what I remembered, confirmed. Tim is just a genuinely kind, authentically humble, truly gifted individual, just trying to do his best to use the gifts God gave him. He's someone who's sitting there blushing right now because he doesn't know what all the fuss is about or how truly extraordinary he is. Escorted today by Hillcrest High School junior Malia Lundstrom, will you please join me in welcoming to the stage my friend, our Captain America, 2019 Hillcrest Hornet Hall of Fame inductee, Timothy A. Garrison.
Wow. Who is that guy? It's Jamie, first of all, thank you as much for what you said as what you didn't say. There's a reason, as a prosecutor, I'm very aware there's a reason we have both the statute of limitations and there's a reason we don't prosecute juveniles as adults, because if we were, I'd be in big trouble. But thank you, Jamie, so much for that kind introduction. It's cliche to say that this is a wonderful and humbling experience, and that I feel greatly honored to be inducted into the Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame with these 2 distinguished physicists. One of these things is not like the others. I'm emphatically not a physicist. In fact, and no one would accuse me of never getting anything less than an A, for sure. In fact, my senior year, I was just talking with Coach Davis, I don't know if you're in here somewhere, from Hillcrest. My senior year, I took a Physics 2 class and got a big fat F. High school students in the room, disregard that. No, on my own, I was a very distractible student who made a lot of knuckle-headed decisions. So any wise choice, any good decision, any accomplishment or achievement that I have, and Jamie was very kind to spell out most of them, is built on a foundation that was laid by a lot of people, most of whom I wouldn't have time to recognize today, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge at least some of those who are seated in the room today. And they include a set of parents, Wayne and Martha Garrison, who instilled in me literally from the cradle that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so I'm very grateful for the heritage that I've received from them, and not just from them, but from 2 sets of God-fearing grandparents that produced them. I'm particularly glad that Mom could be here today because she just a few years ago retired from decades of service to the Springfield Public School System, opening the world of music to thousands of her students. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention someone into my life much later than my own parents, Dr. Tracy Garrison. Her now for more than half my life. I think it's fair to say she's been pretty influential on me as well. And in addition to raising our three fantastic kids, often as a single parent while I'm spending a weekend getting ready for a trial or on the other side of the globe during a deployment, or as our life is now, community Kansas City, she did it as often by herself. But in addition to that, she's a pretty accomplished health professional in her own right. Recently stood up a master's level program at Missouri State University, got it accredited, developed the curriculum, teaches the curriculum, graduated a couple of classes of occupational therapists, all while working on her own doctoral studies. So she's an incredible woman, and I know that if she were not sitting there, I would not be standing here. So thank you, babe. But I think the organizers of this event would like for me to spend a little more time talking about how Springfield Public Schools has influenced me. And so let me say thank God for those patient teachers and coaches who could put up with this distractible kid and pour their passion for their particular discipline into me, and not just me, but all of my classmates. So whether it was Jim Sly's physics class, which I failed, or Jenny Bishop's English class, I think she was in here somewhere, Vicki Kuchel's history class at Pleasant View Middle School, singing in Carol Akers choirs, thank you, and she did make me do the jazz hands, or playing in Charlie Lober's bands, or playing football, 145 pounds soaking wet. Mom always said I had the skinniest legs on the field, and it was true. But each of those teachers and coaches poured into my life and influenced what would come later. But let me single out just a few of those experiences and talk how I think they shaped me. There are no lawyers in my family, so it is extremely unlikely that I would ever be, as Judge Rush so graciously explained, ever be representing the United States in federal district court or arguing a case before the U.S. Courts of Appeals, much less, and this was never even a thought of mine, having the privilege to lead one of the largest United States attorney's offices in the country. How did that even happen? There's not a strong military history in my family. I had a grandfather that served in World War II, but I didn't largely know much about his service until after he had passed away. So how was it that I would find myself carrying a rifle in Afghanistan, and I still shake my head at this, walking the halls of the Pentagon advising the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? That's crazy, and I am so privileged to get to do that. So how did that happen? I mentioned Vicki Kuchel's American history class that I took in middle school at PV. I don't remember the precise parameters, what years we studied. I know we studied a lot of wars, and I particularly remember studying the American Revolution because I found the bravery and the sacrifice of those patriots inspiring. And we would read portions of the Declaration of Independence, and after the signers of the Declaration of Independence laid out the case for their separation from Great Britain, they said, "And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." And they weren't just using flowery prose, because they understood that if they failed in this endeavor, if the revolution did not succeed, they would all be hanged as traitors to the crown. And they had already signed their own death warrant. There didn't need to be a trial. They had already signed their own confession. And so I just found that was inspiring stuff. And that piqued a little interest in the form of government, of service to one's country. And that stuck with me. I mentioned marching in Charlie Lober's bands. Yes, I was a band geek. Jamie and I played together in a few marching bands. The practices were miserable on a frozen football field at dark 30 in the morning, but the trips and the competitions were so much fun. We took a trip our freshman year, it was mentioned earlier, to Washington, D.C. to march in the Cherry Blossom Parade. And the parade's not what I remember. What I remember about that field trip was everything that we got to see in our nation's capital. We toured the memorials, the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial. We toured the White House and the Capitol Building and the Supreme Court. We toured the Smithsonian's, the National Archives. We actually got to see the original Declaration of Independence. We went to Mount Vernon, to George Washington's home, and got to climb the balcony where Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater. We got to touch the names etched into the walls at the Vietnam Memorial. And we got to see the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown at Arlington Cemetery. And all those experiences just had a profound impact on me. Other interests came and went. I thought for a time I might want to be a doctor. I thought I might want to be an architect. But those interests in the course of American history and those giants in our history stuck. And history taught that the freedoms that we enjoy were secured by people who served in our armed services. And I'm so pleased to see several of our young people interested in that here this morning. So thank you, Cadet. So military service became an interest that stuck. And in college, I continued to read about some of these giants in American history. And I started to notice some trends about them. So just consider these trends just among the signers of the Declaration of Independence. John Adams of Massachusetts, a lawyer. Thomas Jefferson of Virginia, a plantation owner, scientist, and a lawyer. Samuel Chase of Maryland, a lawyer. Benjamin Rush of Pennsylvania. No, he was a doctor. But the majority of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, the Articles of Confederation, and the Constitution were either lawyers or had some sort of legal training. So I began to understand that the legal profession was one in which you could have some influence in the direction of a nation. While I was, and that started to turn my attention towards law school. While I was in law school, David McCullough came out with his excellent biography of our second president, John Adams. And before he was our first vice president and our second president, Adams was an ambassador to Europe during the Revolutionary War. He went across the sea, which was no small feat in that day, to try to gin up support to support the Revolutionary War here at home. And we have a treasure trove of his correspondence between himself and his wife Abigail while he was in Europe. And in one of those letters, he talks to Abigail, who is an incredibly intelligent and impressive lady in her own right, about the amazing things that he was seeing in Paris. And remember, Massachusetts at the time where he was from was a colony. It was not Boston that we know of today. It was very rural. He'd never seen anything like the architecture, like the art, heard the music, seen the bawdy theater that he was seeing in Paris. But he was writing about these things to his wife Abigail, and he suddenly gathers himself. And he says, I must study politics and war, that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy. And that just hooked me. Adams understood that in order for our nation to thrive, in order for his children and the rest of the country to pursue their God-given talents and abilities, to pursue happiness, as our Constitution says, some people need to understand and enforce the rule of law, and there needs to be a strong national defense. So those really were the foundations for my two parallel careers that I'm so privileged to get to have in civilian law enforcement and in military national defense. And the seeds of those interests were planted in the mind of a little kid that was easily distracted, but inspired by the stories of our heroes. And I'm so privileged to have the educational background that was provided to me by the Springfield Public School System. So thank you for listening, for indulging me in this little trip down memory lane, and thank you for this great honor. Thank you very much.
Tim, congratulations. Jamie, thanks very much for that introduction. Malia, thanks for your assistance today. Jamie and I were together at a meeting earlier this morning. We were talking about the noon awards luncheon and also Hillcrest High School. I love all of Springfield high schools, but a special love for Hillcrest because I did student teaching at Hillcrest High School way back in 1971, and we were talking about that, and Jamie reminded me that she and Tim graduated in 1994, and then I realized they weren't even born when I was student teaching at Hillcrest High School. Tim, congratulations again. The final Hall of Fame inductee is a 1963 Hillcrest High School graduate. Larry Hartley spent 30 years employed by NASA at the Johnson Space Center, where his work supported Apollo and Space Shuttle missions. After leaving NASA, his career in the private sector included helping to determine the cause of the Space Shuttle Challenger explosion and developing fixes which enable Space Shuttle missions to continue. Again, please direct your attention to the screens to view a highlight video of Larry's accomplishments.
Larry is my nephew, my older sister's son. That he's just a special nephew to me and just is always gentle, kind, thoughtful. I don't know if there's any more words to describe him.
Larry started his NASA career between Apollo 1 and Apollo 2. I think he was hired like in June of 1967. His job was actually to take the space capsule or the mission module and the lunar landing. If they ever separated, it was his job to make sure they got back together. So Apollo 11 would be that first mission where he had that opportunity when our astronauts actually landed on the moon. He was awarded by one of the astronauts an award they called the Silver Snoopy. And the pin that he received was actually flown up into space and then brought back down, just like a whole plethora of the patches that he has from the Apollo missions and things like that. I know why he's being inducted into the SPS Hall of Fame. That would be for his career work at NASA. I would say that his greatest accomplishment would be his daughter. Sharon goes out every day in what she does in her career and tries to make the world a better place. So I'm going with family as far as the greatest accomplishment overall.
I became the department chair of business administration in 2015, and so I inherited Larry Hartley as one of my adjuncts. He immediately rose to one of those adjuncts that I would need to know because of his professionalism, his ability to handle what was given to him. He has a great rapport with students. He's not the easy professor, but he's just one of those people who people want to learn from. There was a student who passed away in his class. She had health issues, he was aware of it, and then she ended up passing away. And Larry worked with the institution to ensure that a memorial fund was set up in her honor from Lone Star College, and that was one of the most impressive things, that an adjunct cared about his student enough. I don't know if any other faculty has done that, but for him to do that and to be adamant about keeping her memory alive is something that I thought was really remarkable.
Hello everyone, my name is Shad McGuire and I am currently a teacher and football coach at Hillcrest High School. I know Larry Hartley because I am the fortunate individual who married his niece Heather, so to me, he's Uncle Larry. His daughters Sharon and my wife are cousins, but are really more like sisters and have definitely come to love that side of the family, which includes Aunt Charlotte too. a former gifted elementary teacher who's been married to Larry for over 50 years. And they are quite the duo, which is extremely evident just watching them seamlessly work together in their year-round vegetable garden, which I personally love to partake from, especially the broccoli. It's absolutely amazing. Now, my wife and I, we frequently visit the farm, which is nestled in the piney woods of East Texas, which is her happy place and favorite fishing spot. Now, speaking of fishing, in retirement, Larry had an article written in Pond Boss magazine. Now, you can take the rocket scientist away from his career, but you can't take the scientist out of Larry. He experimented with adding non-native tilapia to his ponds and had great results. He wanted the world to know about it. He went into great detail describing the problems, tried and failed experiments, and the final positive outcome. The article ended with the summation of his tilapia experiment. They clean like janitors, reproduce like rabbits, fight like banshee, and taste better than chicken. What more could you ask of a fish? Now, while visiting the farm this summer, we had a little road trip, and I got to hear some of his work stories. So, for example, during the Apollo 15 through 17 missions, they were able to change the trajectory sequence and get the astronauts an extra 2 hours of moon time. He told me about work on the shuttle program, the millions of lines of computer code as chairman of the Mission Support Directorate security team. I heard about astronauts who were amazing and cool and calm under pressure, and astronauts who died during their missions way too soon. He told me about the sonic boom he felt when the Space Shuttle Columbia catastrophically broke up over Texas and his subsequent work with Airspace Corporation on the shuttle return to flight team. I discovered a Lockheed Martin Nova Award, which he received for demonstrating a unique combination of creativity, dedication, expertise, and strategy in securing a space operations contract valued at over $3.4 billion. Now, as part of his work 50 years ago, the world witnessed Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin land on the moon. Larry had a front row seat as a rendezvous support specialist in mission control. In the final minutes of the first lunar landing, the possibility of failure was increasing by the second. The lunar module computer was repeating abort. The astronauts were landing with their fuel gauge on empty. And amidst that swirling chaos of that moment, Larry was sitting at his computer terminal doing constant calculations on how to rendezvous the two space modules without delay. While our astronauts were out playing on the moon, he was always preparing for an abort sequence to get them home safe and sound. When the moon mission was completed, the two modules did connect again in deep space, and the rest is actually history. Now, the first moon landing was a remarkable and uncommon day in which the nation achieved an audacious vision that inspires the human imagination even today. It was an engineering feat that forever changed the vocabulary, the metaphors, and the storytelling around technology. Larry was just one of the thousands of extraordinary individuals at NASA who helped put men on the moon. But he went to work every day in a place where failure is not an option, where it's only impossible until it's made possible. Some of the brilliant and splendidly gifted individuals were front and center, while others will say were hidden figures. But they were all significant in their collective contributions to the fabric of NASA and the spirit of the United States of America. Would you please help me welcome to the stage that real-life rocket scientist, I'll go with you, a Hillcrest Hornet graduate, a 2019 Hall of Fame inductee, and my uncle, Larry Hartley, escorted by one of my former students at Hillcrest High School, Justin Gaunt.
Thank you. Thank you, Shad, for those kind remarks, if not maybe exaggerated a little bit. But I'd like to start by thanking Teresa and all of the people associated with this event. It's remarkably well done, well organized, and just top notch, and I really appreciate the effort that they have put in to pull this off. And Ray of 417, I don't know if she's here. I still haven't met her, but she was the one that edited the article and put it in 417. She did a terrific job. I'd like to thank her. And then, how do you thank the interview subjects here? Shad did a great job, but I have to say maybe the best of his accomplishments might be, Garrett's sitting there, Hillcrest. Yeah. What was it, 4 years ago? 4 years ago? Garrett's going to be playing with Evangel this Saturday in an important game. We're going to all go watch it. Hopefully, hopefully it'll be a good result. Roger from Lone Star College kind of surprised me, his remarks. Since he took over the department there, I kind of left the classroom and took a more leisurely role of teaching and just teaching online classes. And you never have to get out of your bathrobe or never have to fight the Houston traffic or all the things, all the bad things associated that at least I thought with teaching kind of go away. And online you get to do all of the good things. And he took over the department after I started going online. So we didn't have a whole lot of interaction, but I certainly appreciate his kind remarks. And I really do enjoy teaching online and interacting with the students. You don't get to interact nearly as much, of course, you do as in a classroom setting, but still it's good. And then my Aunt May, I thought she did an excellent job. At 93 years young, she, I think, made her first visit to a television station. Am I correct? Your first visit, probably, and first time being on camera, maybe the first time being interviewed. Not sure, but from what I can tell, she really enjoyed it, and I think she did a great job. She's from a family of 18, am I correct, or 19? 18, and I thought it was 18, a family of 18 in the hills of southwest Missouri, down around Ava and Noble, if you're familiar with that area. So the video, I'm sure I enjoyed it more than most of you did. It was really, really interesting to see. Teresa gave me 5 minutes. I don't know what she gave the others, but I think they had a little more time, maybe. I'm not saying they went too long, but perhaps they were given more than 5 minutes. Perhaps they did. So I'm going to stick to the 5 minutes. So, and I think you all will be very happy to hear that. She said, talk about what made an impact and who influenced you in your life. And of course, oriented towards Springfield Public Schools. First grade, I went to, first and second grade, I went to a 2-room school, which in its entirety was about half the size of this facility we're in right here. I had students in grades 1 through 8. So you can imagine, actually probably about from here to that camera back there and over, and about half of that was the size of it. Grades 1 through 8, all in this 2-room school. And it was 2 rooms only because there was a divider in between, in the building, stuck up in the building. It had a big wood stove. And after living in Texas for the last 30 or so years, the winters in Missouri looked more and more brutal. And it was brutal as a first and second grader going to that 2-room school. Why do I mention that to the students here? Doesn't matter You're going to get good teaching in schools no matter where you go, and you need to take advantage of that. That was called Pleasant Valley. I've asked a few of the people that I've seen here on this trip if that was actually part of Springfield Public Schools, and I think the consensus is it probably was not. I'm not sure if there's anyone that has insight into that. I can't even tell you the exact location of it, but it's out north, about 5 miles north of Springfield. And it's still there today, but I think it's someone converted it into a home. So from that humble beginning, that school was consolidated with a bunch of others into Pleasant View, and y'all are probably familiar with that. That is now a Springfield Public School. And at the time I was there, I'm not sure if it was Springfield Public Schools or not. I'm not really aware, but it was a great place. Coming from a wood stove outhouse school with virtually no amenities, this school actually had indoor toilets. What a remarkable thing. Really, I'm serious, it really was. It had these things that you could walk up to and turn the handle and water would come out. It's unbelievable, and it was marvelous. Let me tell you, it was really marvelous. And it had individual classrooms. You're in with students your own age. So unlike my first year of school, I was in with students from 1st to 4th grade, and there was another room that was in 5th to 8th grade. And I don't know how the teachers, honestly, I don't know how the teachers did that. But anyway, at Pleasant View, we were in individual classrooms, individual instructions, and it was just a world of difference. And that's really where Springfield Public Schools became a great influence in my life. I was hoping he'd be here today, but I understand he's in China, but I got to play basketball against Howard Hartley, who later became class president and a star basketball player at Hillcrest. And I wanted to remind him, but he's not here. Maybe Mary, you can tell him the story. We played games at the boys club, and our school would be bussed in, and I don't know where Howard, he may have gone to Pipkin or some other school and came in and would play. And one of my greatest, never was that great of an athlete, but one of my greatest claims to fame was I snuck up behind him as he was shooting a jump, and I came up behind him and blocked that shot. And he looked around, and who was that? And I wanted to tell him today that I was that person, but he's not here, and I wish I could have told him about that. I had a remarkable experience, at least I think it was. Let's see if you do. Think it may be quite incredible. At Pleasant View, my 8th grade teacher had a tradition that at the end of the school year, she'd take out a list of the students in the class. There's probably, 20, 25 class. And she would give them her view of their future. You think about that, that would be rather difficult to do in and of itself, but for 20, 25 students. She started with 3 of us, and she got 100% accuracy on these 3. I don't know about the rest. I probably didn't listen or pay attention or whatever, but my friend Paul Abbott, she said, "Paul, you're going to become a doctor." And he did. He became a medical doctor. My friend Larry Ellison, he's going to become an accountant. And he became an accountant, a very successful one. This is an amazing thing. It gives me the goosebumps to talk about it. And for me, she said, she said it's not quite clear, but you're going to be sitting in a facility, and there's going to be things flying around, and you're going to be controlling them. This is a true story. And I had no idea at all what she was talking about. But it stuck with me, and later on I was like, well, she got 2 out of 3 right, you know. She may have been getting up in age or something, but what she could have possibly been talking about, she had no idea what a mission control center was. She had no idea what an astronaut was. She had no comprehension that human beings could live and work in space. It's kind of scary. It is, it really is, that she was able to foresee that. I don't know how she did it. It's just amazing to me. So when we were sitting in the Mission Control Center, doing all these things that I had to do, which I'm not going to talk about today. But by the way, I'm going to talk about some of that on Friday with Shad's has arranged some of his students. If any of you students want to go to that, you can talk to Shad, and we'll talk about that in detail. But I'm not going to get into all that stuff. But then it's sitting there on the control center, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong in a spacecraft headed down to the surface of the moon. And Mike Collins is sitting up here waiting for him to come back. And Neil goes on to the moon. Buzz goes on to the moon. They come back and they rendezvous with Mike. And I understood what she was talking about. Just amazing to me that she could see that. Like I said, it's emotional to me, and it's something that I don't know how she did it. I just don't know how she did it, but it's remarkable. Teachers have a huge impact on their students, and sometimes they don't live to know about it. And maybe sometimes the students don't even know, the extent to which they had an impact. A remarkable thing to me. Sorry, I get a little emotional about it, but it's just a huge thing in my life. Went on to Central High School for 2 years, and then I'm not sure what happened, but it's kind of fuzzy, but a bunch of us got transferred to Hillcrest, and I don't know. I could speculate as to what happened, but a lot of things happened. But we speculated, but it'll all be speculation. And we went to Hillcrest for a couple of years, and very proud to be a member of Hillcrest. I guess there's 3 things that really stand out to me about that made an impact on me at Hillcrest. One of them you probably wouldn't suspect because of the job I'm doing today, but one of them was public speaking, debate. I don't know, yeah. No, I signed up for that, and I had no idea how much benefit that would be to me later in life, in college, but particularly later in my professional life. Feeling relatively comfortable and being able to talk in front of a lot of people or a few people, educated or uneducated or whatever in life. Public speaking classes prepared you for that in a way that I suspect very few other things do. Now you can study, and I did, F equals MA out the gazoo, but when it comes to conducting yourself in a professional environment, that's a good thing to have on your side, and it was a great thing, great experience for me at Hillcrest. Mr. Locke, you mentioned him. Carl Locke was a physics teacher, did a lot for me. He did a great deal in helping me, and I took every math and science class that Hillcrest had, and of course everything that SMS had. Mr. Locke, I think it was maybe sophomore physics, we were doing mechanics. I'm not sure if that was Mr. Thurman, you would know if that was what you're supposed to do in your sophomore year. Where is he? Where's Bob? There. Is that right? That'd been your sophomore year. But anyway, we're doing mechanics, and I found that particularly difficult. Mr. Locke, high school teacher, certainly not a wealthy man, but he agreed that I could come back to Hillcrest. This is when I was a sophomore at SMS. Come back to Hillcrest after school, and we'd work through some of those more difficult problems. No money exchanged hands, no gratuities or anything like that. That's the kind of teachers that Hillcrest had, and I'm sure other Springfield public schools had also. But, as I think about that and look back on it, how many today you think would do that? Hopefully they would, but it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. And it turned out some of the problems I had to work, and he had a little trouble working through it too. But we had a good time, and I always have been very appreciative for what he did. And the third thing that I'm going to talk about again is not so much technical in nature, but what contributes to a professional career. The guys would say, it's going to be a hot summer, but it will be an icy May. You can relate to that. Some of you back then can relate to that. May Pope was an English teacher, probably as conservative and strict, what are the right words to say, but prim, proper, and everything. And the guys would refer, I guess other people did too, I guess you did too, as Icy May. That was very descriptive of her demeanor, how she made students feel. But more importantly, her effect was just immense, almost immeasurable on their students, at least on me. I can speak for myself personally, but I'm sure other students, because you cannot help but be affected by someone called Icy May. If you turned in a paper and it had poor punctuation, poor spelling, or woe to you, poor grammar, you felt it. I mean, you felt the wrath of Icy May. Back then, you guys in the back, you students in May, you probably don't even know what I'm talking about here, but we did sentence diagramming. So here, I see some heads nodding. Yeah, people know what that is. She was absolutely ingenious, devilish at coming up with sentences that were almost, well, it really challenged you a lot to diagram them. But I tell you, that stuff that she put us through, it prepared me for college. It prepared me for writing technical reports, for journals later on, and it prepared me for being what I consider a reasonably good professor. I do not accept in my management classes sloppy work. I don't accept poor grammar. Don't accept bad punctuation in a class that has nothing to do with those things. And it's because of her. It's because of her and doing things that way, the way she taught us, is very important to your well-being, your professional life. It's just a tremendous, tremendous impact. I think I'm going more than my 5 minutes. I'm kind of enjoying it. I admit, really wound up there talking about Mrs. Alma, but my gosh, what an awesome prediction. It still gives me the willies to talk about it and think about it. Any of y'all back there doubt the moon landings? All of you students? Maybe I'll let the older adults. Any of y'all doubt it? There is the internet has anything on it you'd ever want to see. If there isn't a strain that they doubt the moon landings, well, you come on Friday with the group, with whatever arrangements Shad is making, and we'll talk a little bit more about the moon landings, and I'll share some of my experiences at that time. I'm not going to do that today because my 5 minutes is long gone already. I want to, in part, I want to address the students here with one thing that I consider maybe one of the most important things by way of advice or for your future that I can give you. What do you think your most important, and you all can play this game too with me if you wish, but I'm primarily addressing the students and those that are to be students. What do you think your most important financial asset is? I can see the wheels are turning, they're clicking, probably in a car, maybe a house, maybe a ring, maybe a necklace, a bracelet, a dog. That's not a financial asset, but a financial asset that you consider most important in your life. There's a guy who wrote a little book called 7 Habits of Successful People. His name was Stephen Covey. Get the book. Read the book if you have not done so. 7 Habits of Successful People. He says that your most important financial asset is your own ability to earn. Now think about that for a second. Most important financial asset is your own ability to earn. What do you do with your most important financial asset? You polish your car, you wash it, you take care of it, you change oil, the tires, all that stuff. Yeah, you take care of it. But if you looked at things in your life as your ability to earn as is your most important financial asset, you might look at things a little different than you would otherwise. So I ask you going out here today to take that with you and think about how you could do that, how that would change your life. You might exercise more because you can probably live longer if you exercise more and earn more. You might go to school more, and more importantly, you might study harder when you're in school. If you look at your most important asset is your ability to earn money. You would try to enhance that, you try to protect it, you try to grow it, and do everything you could to make that important in your life. So I ask you to take that with you as you go out today. I thank everyone here for the honor. It's really been an honor for me. And for putting up with my story about Mrs. Alma, who just an amazing story, just amazing to me. Thank you very much.
Larry, congratulations again. Shad, thanks very much for that introduction. Justin, thanks for your assistance. You've been very patient these almost 2 hours now, and I thank you very much for attending the 10th Annual Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame Awards Luncheon to celebrate these outstanding Springfield Public Schools graduates. Let's give one more round of applause to the Springfield Public Schools Hall of Fame class of 2019. Gentlemen, stand. Please, all three of you, please stand. Congratulations again. Congratulations again. We heard from all three inductees that achieving their goals and dreams was in part impacted by the educators who made a difference in their young lives. Then as adults, we've seen they in turn can make an impact on the lives of others. If you're a current or a former teacher, would you please stand so let's recognize you for your service in educating the leaders of tomorrow. All current and former teachers in the room, we thank you very much for your dedication and your service. Sponsors, we thank you once again for your support. A special thanks to Ed Smith Marketing and Advertising and KY3 who helped produce the wonderful highlight videos for our inductees. Finally, I'd like to remind you to watch next April for information on SBS.org on how you can help determine who will be inducted in the 2020 Hall of Fame class. We thank you for attending today. We thank you for your commitment to SPS. Remember, if it's good for public education, it's good for our community. Enjoy the rest of this gorgeous fall day. We're adjourned.